Hello, I'm Michael Dawson, and quarantine can be stressful. That's why my favorite part of the week is playing Dungeons and Dragons or D&D with my friends. It can be exciting, relaxing, and sometimes a little frustrating. There's so many numbers and dice to keep track of. That's why I thought I could make it a little bit easier with my QR code scanner that I developed for ENME489Y with Dr. Mitchell. Anyway, I should probably get out of here. Looks like there's a fire giant behind me, and he's not too happy.
Whew, glad we're out of there. So D&D can get pretty complicated with all sorts of dice rolls and stats and everything, so people usually keep character sheets as a collection of all those numbers, but they're not always up. In fact, when I'm playing, I don't always have the character sheet up because it's not necessary. But when the DM says roll for initiative, I need to have it up at a moment's notice. So that's what this program is trying to accomplish. I can pull up a QR code, scan it, and it'll direct me to the character sheet for that character and roll a dice. Impromptu D&D session. I've got my QR code here. I've got my laptop set up but nothing pulled up, and I've got my Raspberry Pi here connected to power. So there's the camera ready to look at the QR code. I've got the wires connecting to the Raspberry Pi to the servo motor, and this is a homemade dice tower. And the idea is when we scan the QR code, it is going to pull up a website on my laptop, and that'll be the character sheet that the QR code links to, and then it will also knock over this dice down this series of panels in the tower, and you'll get a value, and you can easily add it to the initiative value on your character sheet. Looking at the code, there are two parts, the setup and the loop. First thing we do, of course, is import our libraries. Next, we set up the servo that you'll see in a minute using the GPIO library, and we turn off any errors so that we don't crowd up the terminal. After we set up the servo, we start two counters, which will become useful later on once we get some data. Then we declare two classes for the video capture and the QR code detector. Then using OpenCV, we pull in an image from our camera and use their built-in QR code detector and decoder to look for any QR codes and then decode it if it sees one. Then to create some nice visuals, we take the bounding box that OpenCV found if it saw a QR code, and we draw it on the image as well. And we take the data that it found encoded in the QR code and put that on the screen too. Then we show the fully modified image to the screen. And for good measure, we print the data that was encoded in the QR code to the screen. To open up the character sheet, we take the website URL encoded in the QR code and open it up with Firefox using a command, and we go ahead and get rid of any of the errors that show up so that we can keep the terminal clean, and we use the OS library to call that command. After we pull up the character sheet, we also move the servo to a prescribed angle so that it'll knock the dice into the tower, and then we move the servo back to its starting position. And finally, so we don't give the Raspberry Pi too much to do, we iterate this timer variable through 20 cycles until it can open up a web page and move the servo again. So let's see this in action. The DM just said roll for initiative, and I'm going to start the program. Here we see the camera feed, and now I'm going to select the QR code for the character that I want to play. Now I'm going to show that QR code to the camera, and we'll see it recognized on the right. The servo will activate, and then after a delay, you'll see the bounding box around the QR code along with the URL next to it. Then Firefox is going to open up to the URL that was encoded in the QR code. D&D Beyond is a nice heavy website, so it's going to take a minute to load up on the Raspberry Pi. And with the page fully loaded, we can now add the initiative bonus of +1 to the dice that was just rolled by the servo. Going back to the terminal window, you can also see the data within the QR code, the URL, displayed on the screen. Now for robustness purposes, I wanted to make sure that this could work multiple times in a row without restarting the program, so I'm going to pick another character and load that with the QR code. Once again, the servo activates and D&D Beyond opens up on Firefox. Now with Maeve's sheet up, we can also take her initiative bonus of +4 and add that to our new dice roll, and then we'll have two characters in combat ready to go. As a final addition, here is the QR code detector at work with the Firefox and servo functionality disabled. Thanks for watching and stay safe.